My name is Alejandro, and my childhood was pretty ordinary. I grew up in a small town in rural Mexico, where life moved at a slow pace. My father was a mechanic, and my mother was an elementary school teacher. They worked hard and always taught me that if I wanted something, I would have to work for it. From a young age, I loved listening to stories of people who started from nothing and became great entrepreneurs. That inspired me tremendously. I wanted to be one of those people who turn dreams into reality. In school, I was the student who always gave it his all. I wasn't the smartest, but I never gave up. Even when my friends thought I was dreaming too big, I firmly believed I could achieve whatever I set my mind to. I dedicated myself to my studies and every activity I could. When I finished high school, I knew I needed to leave my town to seek something better. My father supported me, but my mother was a little worried about all the new and unknown things I would face. However, I was determined to move forward and find new opportunities. I moved to Monterrey to work for a company. At first, it was very difficult, and I had to prove my worth every day. But with a lot of effort, I got promoted within the company and eventually managed to open my own business. What I didn't know was that the success and wealth I sought would bring new challenges, things I had never imagined that would change my life in ways I wasn't prepared for. The first years with my company were intense. I worked from sunup to sundown, trying to make everything run as smoothly as possible. The business began to grow, and the feeling of being in control and seeing my company prosper was incredible. But soon I realized that success came with a price. Over time, I found myself surrounded by a growing number of people who were only interested in what I could offer them. They were people who wanted to be close to me, not because they genuinely liked me, but because they saw an opportunity to gain something. This began to bother me a lot. I was surrounded by people who, deep down, just wanted to take advantage of my situation. A clear example was an old college friend who reappeared when my company was doing well. He started getting close, offering help and partnerships. At first, I thought he really wanted to collaborate, but it soon became clear that he only wanted a piece of my success. The situation reached a point where he started demanding more than I was willing to give, and after a while, I had to cut off contact. This experience made me a bit distrustful of people. With every new friendship or business contact, I wondered if I was dealing with someone genuine or someone with ulterior motives. I started to close myself off more and trust people around me less. Even so, my company kept growing. I hired more employees, opened new branches, and became a well-known man in the industry. But the more I advanced, the more I felt like something was missing. It was as if, as I built my empire, I was also building walls around myself. Success was isolating me in a way I hadn't expected. Over time, success began to make me feel increasingly lonely. My business was growing, but my personal life was falling apart. I couldn't maintain a serious relationship because I was afraid of getting too involved. I had many women around me. Some were beautiful, others were intelligent and interesting. But even with all those options, I never managed to open myself up for a serious relationship. I was afraid of being hurt or deceived. I met incredible women, but I always found an excuse not to commit. I was always with someone, but deep down, I felt alone. I was the successful man who lived alone, always with a different woman. It was easier to have someone for a while than to try to build something lasting. Whenever a new woman entered my life, I tried to fill the void, but I ended up feeling even emptier. In the end, my life seemed like a series of hellos and goodbyes, without ever really settling down. I knew I needed to change that, but I didn't know how. The success I had achieved wasn't filling the emptiness I felt inside, and without knowing it, that emptiness was about to deepen even further. Over time, the loneliness started to bother me quite a bit. My friends, who were already married and had their lives more or less organized, began telling me the same thing. I needed someone to stabilize my life. I heard that so many times that I started to consider the idea, thinking that maybe they were right. One night, I decided to go out to distract myself and went to a party at a club. The place was packed and the music was loud, but it was there that I met Mariana. She was dancing and caught my attention immediately. Mariana had light brown, straight hair that fell to her shoulders and green eyes that sparkled when she smiled. Her body was well-defined, and she wore a blue dress that highlighted her curves without being over the top. She was a striking woman and stood out from the crowd. It wasn't hard to notice that she knew how to carry herself and attract glances. When our eyes met, I felt an immediate physical attraction. For me, she was just another woman at the party, and I was there to enjoy the night. Soon I noticed that she was watching me with a more intense interest than usual. It wasn't just any look, there was something more there. Mariana approached, and although I was thinking about having fun at night, I couldn't help but feel there was something different about her. Mariana's perfume was incredible, and her demeanor, with that air of disinterest, intrigued me. Most of the women I knew would melt when they found out who I was, but she remained composed and came over to ask me why I was staring at her. I let out a laugh and told her I was just enjoying the view. That response made her smile, and we started talking. The conversation flowed well, and it seemed she was as interested in getting to know me as I was in getting to know her. When the night was ending, I invited her to my place, but to my surprise, she refused. "No, thanks," she said with a smile. It seemed strange to me, but somehow that only increased my interest in her. Instead of just leaving, Mariana gave me her number and took mine. "Let's see what happens," she said, and I realized there was a game going on. Even though she refused, the fact that she gave me her number and acted so independently made me even more curious. I went home thinking about her. Mariana was different from all the other women I had met. I didn't know what was going to happen, but one thing was certain: I wanted to find out. In the following weeks, Mariana called me, and we agreed to meet at a bar. The night was a lot of fun. We talked a lot, laughed a lot, and the connection was excellent. In the end, she agreed to go somewhere more private, which excited me. We went to my house, and contrary to what I expected, she wasn't dazzled by the place. My apartment was large and well decorated, but Mariana didn't seem impressed, or at least she didn't show it. She was calm, as if she were used to places like that. She was elegant and sexy at the same time, which I found very attractive. The way she dressed and the confidence she exuded left me curious. But there was something in her eyes that intrigued me, a mystery I couldn't decipher. It was as if there was more behind that facade of charm and sophistication. The night continued lightly and relaxed, but the mystery in Mariana's eyes never left my mind. I was increasingly interested in discovering what was behind that enigmatic gaze. We started going out more frequently, and soon we were very involved. We dined in elegant places, and Mariana always seemed very confident and comfortable. I liked spending time with her, and her life intrigued me more and more. I started asking questions about her life, wanting to know more, but she always spoke very little about it and tried to change the subject. The only thing she told me was that she came from a humble family and that she was an investor. For my part, I opened up a bit more about my life. I told her about my simple origins, my journey to get where I was. I told her about the challenges I faced and how I overcame them. Mariana seemed very interested in everything I said. Her eyes lit up, and she listened attentively, as if every detail was important to her. Although she avoided talking about her own life, there was a real connection between us. I felt she was genuinely interested in what I had to say, which made me want to keep sharing more about myself. At the same time, the lack of information about her intrigued me even more. Over time, I began to trust Mariana more and more, and to give myself to her little by little. It wasn't easy for me because I had always struggled to open up to others, but her way of being won me over. She always knew what to say to make me feel good and relaxed, and that made me feel more and more comfortable with her. Without realizing it, we started seeing each other every day. Things flowed naturally, and our connection grew stronger and stronger. I felt ready to take the next step in our relationship. So, I decided to ask Mariana to be my girlfriend. I know it might sound like a cliché, but despite being a reserved guy, I've always been romantic. The idea of having something more serious with Mariana felt right, and I wanted to show her how much she meant to me. With a little nervousness and a lot of hope, I prepared to make the proposal. When I finally spoke, I got straight to the point and made my feelings clear. I hoped she would see how serious I was about us, and that she would also be ready to take the next step. Mariana accepted the proposal, and we were very happy with this new stage. I decided to introduce her to my friends, and everything seemed to be going well until then. But after the introductions, Ricardo sent me a message saying he needed to talk to me privately. We agreed he would come to my house when I was alone. When he arrived, what he said made me a bit nervous. Ricardo told me he thought there was something strange about Mariana. He said he felt she was hiding something, but he didn't know what. I got angry with him. After so much time listening to my friends tell me to find someone, now he was criticizing my choice. It seemed like envy because Mariana was incredible. I told him that must be in his head, and that I wasn't going to listen to such speculations. Ricardo said he understood, but that I should at least investigate a little more about Mariana. I replied that if he wanted to remain my friend, he should stop saying those things. I trusted Mariana and didn't want to let Ricardo's doubt sway me. He was silent for a moment, took a deep breath, and just said, "Okay." But I must admit that what he said kept circling in my head. Although I didn't want to admit it, that doubt he planted began to bother me. I decided to do a little research on her, but I didn't find anything. No social media, nothing with her name anywhere. This made me even more suspicious. One night while I was at home, Mariana went to take a shower, and I, curious and distrustful, decided to check her purse and look at her documents. I wanted to see her parents' names, anything that would show me who she really was. But what I found scared me. Her name wasn't Mariana, it was actually Milena. And she had also lied about her age. She had always told me she was 30, but she was actually 26. This was very strange, especially for me, who had always been distrustful. I took a photo of her ID and her information and put them back in their place, trying not to leave any clues. I spent the rest of the night in silence, barely able to talk to her. I tried to act normal, but that thought wouldn't leave my head. She noticed I was different and started asking if something had happened, but I just said I was tired. After days with this weighing on my mind, and with her constantly asking what was wrong, I decided to confront her. I wanted to have kept this to myself and investigated everything alone, but the truth is I was starting to truly fall in love with her. I really wanted to give her a chance to explain herself because, who knows, maybe she had a logical explanation for all of this. So one night I called her to talk and told her I needed to tell her something important. I confessed that while she was showering, I checked her purse, looked at her documents, and discovered that her name wasn't Mariana, but Milena. I also mentioned that she had lied about her age. I expected her to be embarrassed, to try to explain herself, or to tell me it was all a misunderstanding. But that's not what happened at all. She got furious, extremely angry. She grabbed her things angrily, without saying a word, and stormed out of my house, slamming the door. I stood there, not knowing what to think or do. Part of me believed I had done the right thing by confronting her, but I also felt completely regretful. I had ruined everything. Now, besides being alone, I had a ton of questions in my head. I had messed everything up over her. I didn't even know her real name and age. I wanted to know more about the situation, but at that moment, all I felt was a huge void. In the following days, I sent her several messages but got no response. I started to accept that she didn't want anything more to do with me and that our relationship was over. But then she replied to one of my messages. She said she wanted to come to my house so we could talk. I agreed immediately, without thinking twice. When she arrived, she looked sad. She sat on the sofa, dejected, and began to speak. She said she was very hurt because I had gone through her things and distrusted her. I apologized, admitting that I had always been a bit distrustful, but that I knew I had overstepped the mark. However, I also told her that she owed me an explanation. When I heard her explanation, I was shocked, not knowing what to say. She explained that out of fear, she had started using another name. She said she wanted to change her name legally, but hadn't been able to yet. The fear of being found by him made her always live defensively and scared. At that moment, I felt terrible for having gone through her things. She was fleeing from a horrible past, and I had only made the situation worse. I told her she could trust me, that I would be there to help her with whatever she needed. She hugged me and started to cry. I could feel her desperation in that hug, and all I wanted was to protect that woman. Time passed, and we put that matter aside. Our relationship was going well, and I decided it was best to focus on the present and what we had together. But one day, while talking to my friend Ricardo, I ended up unintentionally mentioning what had happened. At that moment, I regretted saying it because I had promised Milena I would keep it a secret. But I needed to vent to someone, and Ricardo was the friend I trusted most. When I told him, Ricardo was as surprised as I was when I first heard the story. He said it all seemed strange, that something was wrong. I explained the story Milena told me about her violent ex-husband and the death threats, but Ricardo, always distrustful, thought the story didn't make sense. This time, I had to agree with him. Although I wanted to believe Milena, the story really did seem a bit strange. Then I remembered the photo I took of her ID. I showed it to Ricardo, and we decided to investigate further. Ricardo, who had always been good at research, offered to help me. We started searching for information using the data I had taken. We managed to find quite a bit of information about her. Ricardo had a contact in the police and asked for her record. We discovered she had no criminal record and had never filed a complaint against anyone. And to my surprise, she had never been married. But what made me even more uncomfortable were some photos we found. She appeared with several people, some different men, which only increased my distrust. It seemed there were many hidden things, and that left me uneasy. Ricardo warned me that it would be better to stay away from her, or at least be very careful. He was worried about what he had found and thought I should be alert. Despite everything I discovered, I still didn't want to break up with her. I knew everyone has secrets, and I still liked her. So I decided I would continue the relationship, but more carefully. The idea of ending it definitively didn't seem right to me, especially because I was involved with her and wanted to give our story a chance. After this, things started to go wrong for me. First, I began having a lot of problems with my car. Suddenly, the car started failing, and I had to spend a fortune on repairs. Then my health problems began. I had constant headaches, felt dizzy, and started having nightmares. But it didn't stop there. Even the company started having problems. I noticed that everything got worse when Milena was around. Whenever she arrived, I felt intense dizziness and a strong headache. I went to several doctors, but they found nothing, which was expected since I had always taken good care of my health. I ended up spending many days in bed, not knowing what to do. Ricardo came to visit me, worried about everything that was happening. I didn't know what to think, but I felt I needed someone to listen to me and try to understand what was happening. Ricardo, unlike me, had always had a firm faith and a more open mind for spiritual matters. His mother, Donna Amelia, did some spiritual cleansings and attended to spiritual problems. I had consulted with her before. Ricardo suggested she come to see me, and with nothing to lose, I ended up accepting. The next day, Donna Amelia showed up at my house with a bunch of things: tarot cards, some candles, and a jar with a dark brown liquid that had a pretty strong smell. I was home alone and preferred that Milena didn't know anything about this. Donna Amelia began to lay out the cards, and soon made a strange expression. She continued the reading and began to speak. She said there was an ambitious and very intelligent woman in my path, a beautiful woman with secrets. At that moment, I immediately thought of Milena. But ambitious? As far as I knew, she wasn't like that. To be honest, I didn't know much about her. Donna Amelia told me she was seeing black magic in my path. She asked if I was seeing someone, and I showed her the photo of Milena on my cell phone. As soon as she saw the photo, she made a very serious face. She asked me what I knew about Milena. I told her I knew little, only that she had hidden many things from me. Donna Amelia then drew more cards and began to talk about Milena. She said she had a big ego, was cunning as a fox, and wore a mask. She said she wasn't who she claimed to be, and that I should be careful because she was planning something. Donna Amelia thought that Milena had done love magic to keep me close. I wasn't very convinced because Milena always seemed disinterested, and even played a little hard to get when we first met. But Donna Amelia said that could just be her strategy. Although I was upset by all this, I had a lot of respect for Donna Amelia and thanked her for her attention. I told her I would be fine. She agreed and left. But things only got worse. My health declined, and I began to weaken more and more. There was a day when Milena was at my house, but I wasn't feeling well at all. I went to my room to rest a bit, trying to ignore the headache that wouldn't go away. Milena was in the living room, using her cell phone, and I was in the bedroom struggling to keep my eyes open. Suddenly, I felt an urgent need to go to the bathroom. I got out of bed, but as soon as I took the first step, everything went black. I don't know what happened next. When I came to, I was in a hospital room. The first thing I did was look for Milena, hoping to see her face next to me, but she wasn't there. Instead, sitting by my bed were Ricardo and his mother, Donna Amelia. They had an expression of concern that made me even more nervous. I asked what had happened, and Ricardo explained that I had fainted and that Milena had called him, saying I was sick. She called an ambulance, but strangely, after that, she simply disappeared. She didn't even stay at the hospital to wait for me to wake up. As Ricardo spoke, I felt a knot in my stomach. It wasn't just because of my health, but because something didn't add up. Why didn't Milena stay with me? Why did she disappear like that? I tried to justify it by saying she was probably scared, but deep down, it bothered me a lot. Donna Amelia, always calm, approached and took my hand. She looked me in the eyes and said that when I got better, I needed to talk to her about something serious related to Milena and what was happening. At that moment, I still didn't know it, but my life was about to change in a way I could never have imagined. I spent another day in the hospital, had more tests done, and to my surprise, everything was fine. I was discharged, but that strange feeling didn't go away. I went home, and Donna Amelia insisted on staying with me for a few days, saying it was better that I wasn't alone. I couldn't stop thinking about Milena. Where was she? And what was really going on? That's when Ricardo and Donna Amelia called me to talk. They asked me to sit down and said they had something serious to tell me. At first, I thought it was just exaggerated concern, but the expression on their faces made me tense. They started by saying they knew it would be hard for me to believe, but that I could confirm it with the doctors. The reason I fainted, according to the doctors, was due to some strong medication I had taken. But then came the shock. None of that medication had been prescribed for me. They were very potent sleeping pills, and according to the doctors, it was Milena who gave them to me. At that moment, I felt a lump in my throat and a chill in my stomach. I couldn't believe it. Ricardo looked at me with pity and said that the doctors had to pump my stomach, and from what they discovered, Milena had been drugging me for some time. I didn't want to believe it, but at the same time, everything started to make sense. The constant tiredness, the headaches, the dizziness. It all fit, and fear began to take hold of me. Donna Amelia continued speaking, and with each word, I felt the ground disappear beneath my feet. She said that while I was in the hospital, she decided to tidy up my house a bit. That's when she found a bag with some strange symbols, and a powder inside that she said looked like cemetery dirt. It was well hidden inside a flower pot. She only found it because she was watering the plants and ended up moving the soil. She said that was undoubtedly black magic and that she burned it and broke the spell. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I tried to understand why Milena would do that to me. What was the point of all this? What did she really want? But deep down, we all came to the same conclusion. It was my money she was after. At that moment, I panicked. I quickly grabbed my cell phone, opened the banking app, and checked my account. The shock was immediate. My personal account was empty. I had over 100,000 pesos in savings, and she had managed to transfer it all. I also had over 300,000 pesos in jewelry, watches, and gold in the safe. I had no idea how she did it, but the first thing that came to mind was that she must have used my fingerprint while I was asleep, drugged by those pills. But the safe? I don't know how she opened it because she didn't have my password. The feeling of betrayal was devastating. The woman I thought was by my side, who had a sad and complicated story, was actually. I asked Ricardo to continue investigating Milena because I needed to understand who that woman really was. He said he had already done so and discovered something that left me even more in shock. Milena, before getting involved with me, was a high-end prostitute. She dated wealthy men, and that's why she had all that class and knew exactly how to play with me. I went to the police, but I couldn't resolve anything. She was smart. She transferred the money to a ghost account, and after that, I don't even know what happened.